and emotional learning administrator in Hayward Unified School District. I got my notes here, so you might see me reaching over, so that's what I'm doing there. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming to session 3 of 3 of this series. This concludes our series today, but we have a lot in store. It's going to be a super fun time and a lot of activities and tools that you will be able to have and use. So before we get started, I wanted, and I do this every time, I'm going to do it right now. I want to acknowledge, thank, and appreciate every single one of you for all of the work that you are doing on a daily basis on behalf of our students, on behalf of their families, on behalf of your colleagues, on behalf of your own family. These last 2 years have just been, a clutter of crazy. And it's been very, very challenging in moments, really, really hard in moments. It might have been even hard today, I don't know. But I do want to acknowledge and thank you for not giving up, for sticking with your why, for continuing to show up to serve the students and do all of the things that are required of you and things beyond what is required of you to continue to support students. So on top of all your personal things that are going on with your family and even yourself, you keep showing up for the babies. You keep showing up for the babies. And so for that, I would like to thank you and acknowledge you for all of that. So on that note, I would like to wish you a happy early Teacher Appreciation Week, which starts next Monday and it ends next Friday. So yay to you for all of that. All right, so just a little bit about myself. This is my 29th year in education, and I started in San Francisco Unified in Sunnydale at the Boys and Girls Club, tutoring, and then I moved to the Bayview District. There was something called San Francisco Educational Services, and there I taught GED classes. I student taught at King Middle School. I moved then to Fremont, California. I taught at Irvington for a number of years. I taught at Mills High School in Millbrae. And then I concluded my teaching in San Bruno at Peninsula Continuation High School. And then after that, I became a restorative practices coach again for San Francisco Unified and also Hayward. And in Hayward, I served as administrator for a couple of different schools. And now I am the administrator on special assignment for social and emotional learning. So just so you have a context of who's talking and who's running the workshop. So that's why I know so many of the San Francisco people because I remember them from when I was there. So thank you all for being here. I see you, Ms. Thompson, I see you. All right. Let's see here. So if you wouldn't mind, just check in with yourself right now. How are you feeling in terms of your level of stress? Sarah, who was on a few minutes ago, was saying it was kind of a hectic day today. So where are you on the continuum of stress? 1 being the low, 10 being the high. If you could just pop it in the chat, that would be great, just so we could sort of see where people are landing in the space. And then I'll ask Imani and or Britt if they wouldn't mind calling out some of the numbers. When I'm in full screen, I can't see the chat. So
I'm seeing some 7s, some 8s, a 9, 2, 3, 6.
Okay. So there's a big range, but we're mostly on the 6+ side with some on the lower end. So that's a good thing. All right, so we're going to talk about and deal with stress today. We have many activities for you just for that. So for right now, though, for the next 75 minutes, we're just going to take a breath. So I'm going to ask you just to have a big inhalation. Just inhale really big right now. And just let it out. So these next 75 minutes are devoted and dedicated specifically to you. It's an opportunity for you to pause, to chill out, to relax, to take care of yourself, to devote time to yourself solely and totally for you, hopefully without interruption. So all of those things that are in your mind, like, oh my gosh, I have to do this, I should do that, and the, interminable, never-ending to-do list, we're just going to push all that off to the side. And for these next 75 minutes, the time is dedicated and devoted to you. This is all about you. So one of the things we talk about on this journey of self-care and wellness, and I call self-care self-love because it is an act of self-appreciation, and as Audre Lorde, the poet, says, it's an act of political warfare, self-preservation. I'm encouraging us to not be judgmental on that journey. Sometimes I know for myself, I set out a goal or a plan and then I don't follow it, or I fall off, or I compare myself to how other people are doing, or I'm just hard on myself, which is ironic to be hard on yourself when you're on a journey for self-appreciation and self-love. So this whole space that we're in is an NJZ. My friend Jessica, who used to work in San Francisco Unified, coined that term. So it's the no judgment zone. So as you are working on your journey, as you are traveling on your journey, as you are on your journey in life, let's make a promise, an awareness even, to just not be so judgmental on ourselves and just really be easy with ourselves, because however you are showing up right now is the right and perfect way, the right and perfect time, and you're in the right and perfect place. So just know that all is well. There is no judgment. Do not judge yourselves. Don't feel guilty about taking care of yourselves. Don't feel guilty about putting yourself first. We're in a no judgment zone here. Okay, and as an English teacher, I'm not judging. So there's something on the screen. Can you all see something on the screen that's off? Can anybody identify what we're looking at, that the spelling is off? Can anybody identify it? So the word judgment, people typically spell it with an E, but the word judgment actually doesn't have an E. I know, and it's tricky because it's one of those English things. People are like, wait, what? How can you say judge if it has an E? But when you say judgment, it doesn't have an E. So we're not judging it. We are appreciating the person who wrote this because their intent was really heartfelt and sweet. So we are entering an NJZ. So today we have 4 goals. One is we're going to use something I created called the Recalibrate, Revive, and Revitalization tool. We're going to identify activities that either nurture or deplete you. We are going to learn some stress management techniques. Actually, the whole session is really about that. And then at the end, you're going to create your own personalized self-love plan and promise. All right, so I am going to ask Imani or Britt if they would put in the chat the link to the workbook. So in a moment, you'll see a link and you're going to click on it. I'm going to just do this for 1 second. Okay, what happened right there? Okay, so you're going to click on the link and it's going to force you to make a copy. You're going to click make a copy. And this is your interactive workbook that you're going to use over the course of our time together today. So this is what you should be seeing once you open up the link. So it has the date, it has today's session goals, and it has some of the activities that we'll be utilizing over the course of our time together. So the pictures aren't populating right now. There we go. So this is what you should see in your workbook. So leave it open, please, because we're going to be utilizing this over the course of our time together. All right. Next slide. So let's get started. All right, my friends, here we go. Riddle me this. I have memories, but none of my own. Whatever's on my inside is what is shown. If I'm ever different, it's because you changed me. I feel like a decoration here for you to arrange me. Can anybody guess the riddle? And you can unmute and share, or you can put it in the chat. Let's see some thinking faces right here. Head nods. Parched lips. What is it? Half grins. Tilted heads. What is it? Okay, hint. It starts with the letter F as in Frank.
Feelings.
Not feeling. Okay, let me show you. It's a frame. It's a frame. So today, as we talked about stress relieving activities and resources and tools, today we're going to flip the idea of stress. We're going to reframe it with a new paradigm, with a new way of thinking about it. So in your workbook, you will see that there is an article called How to Turn Stress into a Good Thing. And it sounds like, what? How is that possible? What does that even mean? And so this article talks about Kelly McGonigal, who did an 8-year research study out of the University of Wisconsin-Madison with 29,000 people. And what they found, or what she found, is that a person's view of stress impacts our health far more than the stress itself. It's the perception of the stress. It's the view of the stress. It's how we see the stress. And so here the research goes on to say that when we think about stress as always something that's bad for us, then we're likely to have that turn out to be true. But according to the research, if you think stress is a good thing as a way to energize you, as a way to challenge you, as a way to kind of motivate you, give you a sense of agency, that you are also correct. And then the study finally concluded here that people with a positive view of stress lived many years longer than those who had a negative view of stress. So it's just really an interesting study right there. So what we're going to do is we are going to reframe our stress today. And I'm sorry, before we do that, I just want to acknowledge that my Aunt Tessie just came on the call. Aunt Tessie is 91 years old. She is a retired registered nurse. And I just want to say, hi, Aunt Tessie, thank you for coming. All right, so right now I'm going to ask you to think about, conjure up in your mind, like all of the things that are stressing you out, all of the stressful things. And in a moment, I'm going to have us all collectively unmute our mics, and we're all going to say out loud in unison, in choral style, all together in a cacophonous sounding expression, all of the things that are stressing us out for 15 seconds. Okay, so I'll give you a second to think about all of those things that are just so stressful. And in a moment, when I click the timer, we're going to all unmute, and together and collectively, we're going to say out loud those stressful things in our lives. Okay, you ready? Okay, here we go.
Physical pain.
Work.
Consolidations.
Family, life,
Students.
Job.
Money.
Job,
Lack of
health,
patience.
No time.
art, implementation, how are you doing?
Technology.
Not enough
Wishful
time,
sight.
too many things to do, too many extra
Sleep.
tasks done at once.
The school
Health.
year.
not enough time.
Health.
Children.
Okay. All right, that was excellent. Children, thank you for calling it. Thank you all for that activity. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to build up to go into breakout rooms. And so now that we've shared our stressors, I'd like to, in a few moments, create a space for us to reframe, to transform one of those stressors that you just named out loud. So there is a theorist, a Chicana theorist, her name is Gloria Anzaldúa. And so she talks about the power that we can amass for ourselves in our lives if we can detach, if even for a moment, this idea of frenzy and crazy and all the busyness and all the stress that goes on. Similarly, in this article, which is also in your workbook, if you click, I'm going to click on the link for us. And if you want to click on inside of your workbook, you're welcome to do so. We're not going to read the full article, but I do want to point out a couple of things. And so this is scaffolding, right? We're building up to the next activity. So one of the things that this article talks about is how to conquer negative thinking. And they offer a couple of really specific ways. So one of them is they talk about don't try to stop your negative thoughts, because it's sort of like saying to yourself, I'm not going to think about eating ice cream or eating chocolate. But the soon as you say that, the first thing you want to do is eat some ice cream or eat some chocolate. So what this is suggesting is that we lean into and just acknowledge the thing. So maybe that means that we go get a piece of chocolate, have enough to scratch that itch, and then be done with it. Or we just acknowledge it, or we just let it pass, but don't try to stop the thought itself. And then be kind to yourself, right? We're in the no judgment zone. So treat yourself like you would your very best friend. And then even challenge these negative thoughts by asking a series of questions. For example, what is the evidence for this thought? How do I know that it's even true? And am I basing this on fact, or am I basing it on feelings? How could I be misinterpreting this whole situation? How might other people view it differently? And if I weren't myself in this situation, how might I view it? So these are just some suggestions of ways to reframe and have stress be viewed as something that is not so terrible, but something that can actually inspire us and give us a sense of agency. But this is the part of the article that we're going to particularly pay attention to, because this is the activity that we're going to do in just a few moments. And so it's rewriting your story. So writing about yourself and about personal experiences, and then rewriting them can lead to behavioral changes and improve our happiness. So when I talked earlier about the reframe, that's exactly what we're going to do right now, is reframe one of those stressors that you identified that you called out. I'm going too fast. So I do want to also acknowledge that there are some real stressors that some of us are dealing with. And so I don't want to minimize the reality and impact and intensity of those things. The intention with this activity is to create a reframe in order to create just a moment of peace, just a moment of solace, just a moment of not feeling the weight of whatever that particular stressor might be. And so what we're going to do now is engage in something called constructivist listening. Has anyone heard of this or used this protocol before? Oh, I see hands going up. All right, excellent. So this idea of constructivist listening is really nice, and it's really designed for the person who's the speaker. So it's an effective way to really talk about some really challenging things that might be going on, some intellectually demanding ideas to kind of talk them out, some emotionally challenging things that are happening with us. And again, it's an opportunity for the speaker to be able to speak out loud, like we just did a few minutes ago, and reflect on whatever the issue is that they're bringing forth. And in the process of that, release some of the emotion that may be pent up around the issue, and also construct new meaning about whatever the challenges are that people are facing that are really real. So the guidelines for constructivist listening are simple. Everyone gets equal time. There's no interruption, confidentiality, no criticism, and provide undivided attention. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to, in a moment, stop the share and put you in breakout rooms. And in the breakout rooms, you'll each have 3 minutes, and you can think about one of the stressors that you named out loud and select one of those stressors and envision what it would be like, what it would feel like, how your life might be with that reframing, right? With that idea of stress being a way that helps motivate us and changes things and reframes how we are looking at it. And if you take that one thing that you identified as stressful and transform that into some peace, some non-frenzy, some happiness, what might that be like for you? So I'm going to stop the share, and I am going to put the question of this activity in the chat so you can have it. Should also be in your workbook, but that's okay. It'll be easier if I do it for you here. So here are the prompts. There you go. All right. So you're selecting one of the stressors and you're going to talk about what would it look like if you reframe that. Okay. So I'm going to now open up breakout rooms. 17, 8. Okay. So let's go with 8. 8 rooms. People, the act of reframing an area of stress. What was that like? Were a couple people want to share out? Yeah, Joe.
It was really amazing. It was just being able to talk that piece, without expecting someone to reply. That felt really good.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting to be able to talk without interruption, knowing that you're going to be able to get it all out and you don't have to rush to try to get it in before you get cut off.
Right. And it's like, well, at least my partner made it really easy for me not to worry about whether I was so coherent or not, whatever,
Right.
So it's good.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I could share for a moment,
Please.
Vicki, Mrs. Jones and I, or Miss Jones and I were partners. And, sometimes in the world, we can kind of think that, am I the only one that think like this? And then you find somebody who think just like you think. You're not a lone ranger.
Yeah.
I found I'm not a lone ranger.
Yeah. Yes, that's the truth, isn't it? Building that empathy, understanding that we're not alone in this. And yeah, sometimes we just get in our own heads, just start spinning. All right, excellent. Thank you all. All right, so we are going to move on to our next activity. And let me share the screen again here. All right, what's happening? There we go. All right. So thank you all for sharing that. And let's move over here and go here. So in your workbook, you will see this recalibrate, revive, and revitalize tool. So when you click on that, it's going to ask you to make a copy. Everything's going to ask you to make a copy. And what you'll be able to do is take a few minutes and think about the different ways that stress or tension shows up in your body. And this tool that I created will give you an opportunity to be able to kind of categorize different aspects and different ways that stress shows up and come up with some remedies for yourself, some ways to revive and reset, and then also ways to think about revitalization. So the way that this tool works, and we'll have about 4 minutes on it, is here in this far left column, you'll see indicators, 3 specifically, that are letting you know, your body know, that you need to reset. You need to recalibrate, like you're off, you're stressed, or you're experiencing some kind of tension. And one of those indicators is a physical indication. And so that could be things like your heart beating fast, or maybe your hands sweating, or you start shaking your foot, or your jaw might tighten up, or you might purse your lips. A friend of mine, Miss Parker, who when she used to teach in San Francisco, her students would say, Miss Parker, you have the 11s, you have the 11s. And she's like, what are you talking about? They're like, yeah, because you're stressing and you're going like this. So your eye right here looks like you have 2 1s, you have 11s in your forehead. So that would be an indication for her, right, that she was stressed when she gets those 11s. And then another indicator of stress or tension is emotional. And so how are you feeling? Do you feel triggered? Are you disinterested? You're just like, dude, I don't even care, or shutting down, or being really moody. And then another indicator is behavioral, like, biting your nails, or picking at things, or, tapping, or just being tired or impatient. So I'm going to give you a moment to write down a couple of examples for yourself, how each of these forms of tension show up for you and your body. And then we're going to think about, on your same form here, what are some ways to revive? What are some ways that you can relieve those feelings of stress, whether they're 1, 2, or all 3 of them? And so here are some examples to show, or to offer yourself some self-compassion statements. Or I talked to someone earlier who shared with me that she moved her body when she was feeling stressed earlier today. Or just sit by yourself, or take a nap if you can, or play your happy song, go on a mental vacation, or just close your eyes for a moment. Step away if you can from the situation. Pet your pet. Reach out for support. So there you'll be able to identify some things that you can do as a remedy and a go-to when you need to reset and revive. And then finally, who are your lifelines? Who are those people that you can call when you know that you really just need to reach out, and they're not going to judge you? They're going to do a constructivist listening, even though they might not even know what that is, and it might not be even a formal protocol, but just someone who you can talk to who will just listen. They're not going to judge you. It's the NJZ. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get your words right. You can just let yourself be. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to just fill this in. And this is a tool to remember to come back to remember to utilize when you need those moments of reset. So I'm going to stop the share for now. And so in your workbook, you should have that page, that document. And I'll give you, okay, I see people nodding affirmatively. So let's take about 4 minutes to fill that out, and then we'll come back together. Uh, so the workbook, so we had this last time. I don't know if you, let me see. Britt and Imani, can you put the workbook again in the chat? There it is. So Musi, the workbook is in the chat. Are you able to access the chat? And you'll be asked to make a copy, and then you can go to the document, which is the Recalibrate, Revive, and Revitalization tool. You have about 2 more minutes. Okay. All right, we are back. All right, was there anything that came up for you utilizing this tool that was surprising for you or unexpected? Okay. Did you find this useful? Okay. So the question is, will you refer to it later? That's the question. So we'll see. Yeah, I see. Just like, I'm not sure. Okay, so they'll see. So if you need it, it is there for you. Okay. All right, let us keep moving forward, friends. All right. Okay. So, mini habits. So I listened to this audiobook a while ago, and it was super helpful. So a mini habit is a small positive behavior that you make yourself do every day. And it seems like who wants to make yourself do something every day, even if it's for 5 minutes or fewer. So the idea of it is, if we're trying to develop a habit, if we're trying to develop a skill, if we're trying to improve an area of our life, if we're trying to reach a goal, even if we just spend 5 minutes on that activity or on that task on a regular, meaning daily basis, it helps us move closer to and toward that goal. So what happens is, once we start building the habit or the mini habit or the micro habit of doing a thing regularly, that 5 minutes or those few minutes can turn into more minutes and into more minutes and into more minutes. And so it helps us make shifts in our behavior, in our goal setting, in things that we want to transform in our lives, even if we do it a little bit every day. So let's say your goal is to work out 30 minutes every day and you can't do it a day. Well, if you work out for 5 minutes or even 3 minutes, right, you have done something toward that goal. So the idea is not to abandon a thing because you don't have the full-fledged time to do it that you initially committed to, but every day make one move or one step toward that goal. And in doing so, practicing these mini habits really helps boost our confidence. It helps us feel like we're being consistent and have a kind of this sense of control over the things that we can control. And so it's a really, like, even for myself, I've been doing Duolingo like every day for 5 minutes. And so just that mini habit of continuously doing a thing over and over and over again. And sometimes I won't do the full minutes. I might just have time to do a few things, but I'm feeling proud of myself for consistently thinking about I'm moving forward and I don't have big gaps. However, if you are working toward achieving a mini habit and you do get those big gaps and you don't consistently utilize and implement a mini habit, we're still not going to beat ourselves up about it, right? We're still in the no judgment zone. We're going to give ourselves grace, but we're going to get back on it. And so this is, I found something really helpful that I just wanted to share. And so thinking about, you know, our lives and all the things that we have going, is there an area that you would like to focus on developing a mini habit that could become a persistent or a continuous or consistent goal for you in your life? Is there an area? And so you can just kind of think about that. And if you'd like to put it in the chat, or if you want to share out loud, like what's an area where you'd like to really focus on developing a mini habit to really cultivate it into a habit that you feel will really be helpful to you and really just make you feel good. All right, would anyone like to share? Kind of putting folks on the spot there with that question.
Okay, well, I put one in. I just put go outside the house because I work online with the San Fran School District. And I mean, there are days, I'll just say weeks, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I have not even set a foot outside the door. So I just like to set a mini habit of every day, just kind of go outside and enjoy some fresh air or the sun shining down on my head to get some vitamin D.
Yep. Very good. Yes. Thank you, Eddie. Yeah. Anybody else want to share? I think some things are being put in the chat. Let's see. Stretching. I don't know if y'all can see that. Stretching, exercise, journaling, movement, meditation, or practicing my music regularly, more stretching, which makes a big difference. Learn how to stop and take a break when I need to, so that I don't completely drain myself when things are a lot. Yes. Leaving phone off. Excellent. Yeah, just mini habits, little steps toward achieving goals. Gratitude at the end of the day. Try to always find 2 or 3 things to be thankful for. Be happy to do 10 or 15 minutes of exercise daily with no law to do it every day. I like it. No law to do it every day. Yeah, and even if you just sort of like what Eddie said, even if you just go out your house and walk up the block and walk back down to your house, I mean, that's something, right? It's just a matter of doing something. It's just one little thing in movement toward a goal. All right, so moving on here, my friends. So I know we have all seen this. And so one mini habit that we can kind of cultivate is remembering our boundaries. Boundaries. And one of the ways that we can honor those boundaries emotionally even is that remembering that there's only so much that we can do and there's only so much that we have control over. And even this notion of control is a whole conversation in and of itself, right? Do we actually have control over things? Sometimes I don't even have control over my own behavior, right? And so this idea of control, as I said, can be a whole conversation. And what does that even mean? But there are some things that we do have agency over, we do have control over. And then there are those things that we might have some influence over, and then there's everything else that there's just nothing we can do about it. And so one mini habit we can develop is just remembering to honor our boundaries, and also remembering, for those of us who do this really deep heart work with children and families, is that there are some things that we just can't control, right? And even though we see trauma and pain and just some bad situations, the best we can do is to support the best we can, but understanding that we can't control those things, and just offer ourselves up as much as we can, still maintaining and holding a boundary, but still showing compassion and empathy at the same time. And then this is also a really helpful tool that I have found, and it helps me not feel whelmed when I have too many things on my to-do list. And so this Eisenhower decision matrix is a way to parse out and compartmentalize and put in buckets, like all of these things that we need to do. So in the green box, you'll see the do first. So those are things that we have to do. Like we have to get them done. There's a deadline. We can't not do those things. And so focus on those really important tasks that can be done the same day or even maybe the next day. But even knowing that to me it helps me alleviate that sense of control and overwhelm when I have all these things to do. And then the other idea is to schedule something. So things that are important, but they're not super, super urgent. And it's something that you can schedule out in a day or two. And then the third thing is delegate. Delegate those things that are really not so urgent, that are less important, and that you don't have to do yourself. And sometimes that's hard for us, right? And then the other is things that you just, the red light, stop. You don't even have to do it. What's neither urgent nor important, you don't have to do them at all. And so when we're thinking about ways to manage and mitigate our stress, one of the things that can help us is really parsing out, like, what are the things that we absolutely have to do, and what are the things that we can put off until later. And so this is the second of the last activity that we're going to do today. This one is called nurturing versus depleting activities. And so I'm going to click on the link. It is also in your workbook. And so here you're going to make a copy. And this document is going to ask you to identify 6 activities that you do on a daily basis, and identify whether or not those activities are nurturing or whether or not those activities are depleting. So nurturing activities are those things that boost our energy, they make us happy, they create endorphins in the brain, they just help us feel better, and they help us feel less stressed. Depleting activities are those that do the opposite, right? They're sapping our energy, they're increasing our anxiousness, our stress levels, and they're minimizing our sense of happiness. And so some examples of those activities that are nurturing ones are eating well, drinking water. Some of the things that were just mentioned in the chat is people want to develop as many habits, getting enough sleep, spending quality time with friends. And then those depleting activities are repetitive work-related tasks, right? Taking care of others. And so taking care of others is it's an act of love, right? We take care of those who need to be taken care of, but it is still hard and it can be depleting. And so just to name it, that it's hard and it's emotional, it doesn't mean that we're bad people for saying that out loud. It means that we're just acknowledging, how it is. And so it can be a depleting activity, or for some it could be nurturing. It depends, right? And then ruminating or dwelling over things in the past, and then watching the news, certainly a depleting activity right there. So what I'm asking you to do here, and my computer's freezing, there we go, is we're trying to achieve as much balance as we possibly can, right? And so what you're going to do here is you're going to identify 6 activities that you do in a daily basis. They could be professional, they can be personal. It's completely and totally up to you. Then once you've listed them, you're going to identify whether or not that activity is more nurturing or more depleting. Once you have identified which is which, you're going to take a tally and just sort of see which on a daily basis with these 6 activities that you've chosen, whether or not you are doing more activities that are nurturing your well-being or depleting your well-being. So this is an opportunity to kind of have a snapshot that can be informative, right? Give you information, data, if you will, about sometimes why you feel so tired. So if you write 6 things and they're all depleting activities, then that's information. And so with that information, then we can begin to identify, like, what's one thing that we can do to create more balance between these activities. And then things you can consider are the mini habits that we just talked about, the recalibrate, revive, and revitalization tool. So I'll give you a few minutes to work on this activity. I will stop the share and give you time. Oh, thanks for putting the workbook in the chat, Jenna. Give you a little time to just play with that. Okay. All right. Are we good? Yeah. Okay. Excellent. All right. Okay, so you did get the workbook open. Okay. Um, all right. Here we go. Did I hit share? I don't think I hit share. I did not. Okay, here we are. All right, my friends. Okay. So how many of you had, what was the ratio of nurturing versus depleting activities? What was the ratio for some of you? You can just call it out or put it in the chat. I'm just curious. And there's no judgment about any of it. 50-50, okay, fair enough. 1 to 3, okay. Half and half, okay. Okay, could be either. All right, yeah. So thank you, Musi. So it's all information, right? And so now that we have this information, second deplete, 2, not 4, 2, not good this week. Yeah, sometimes it's that way. Okay, excellent. So like I said, it's information. And so now we know that we can recalibrate and we can readjust as needed when we can. Okay, next thing here. So this is a really nice grounding exercise. For those of you who work directly with students, this is good. And if you work with grown-ups, it's equally good. This is a great activity when a person needs to get regrounded. A person needs to, they might be feeling stress or anxiety. They might need to they're not so escalated that they need something to bring them literally physically back in their body. And so it's called the grounding exercise 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. And so the way that it works is Dr. Joy Harden Bradford, she did therapy for Black girls. And so she talks about this notion: observe your environment and describe to yourself 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things that you can see: a clock on the wall, gray carpeting on the floor, the tree outside, the lamp, my computer mouse. 4 things you can feel: your clothing, your desk, your computer keys, your toes wiggling in your shoes. 3 things that you can hear: freeway traffic, voices, the ticking of a clock, if people even have clocks anymore in their houses that tick. 2 things that you can smell. So let's say you just washed your hands, right? And you have lotion or soap or your coffee. And then 1 thing that you can taste: a stick of gum, some candy, a swallow of tea or water. And so this exercise is designed to take the person off of whatever is distracting them and causing them stress and anxiety, and really reground them and bring them back in. All right, and then the last activity that we're going to do that requires you to use your workbook is your self-care plan and promise. And so it's for you and it's designed by you. So we will take a few minutes to do this, and then we have a kind of fun ending closing activity, and then our time will be up, friends. So you're going to yet again make a copy. This is of the self-love plan, and this one I like. I like it because it helps you identify specific areas of self-love, 5 in particular, that you really want to look at and boost up. So we talked about mini habits, right? So this would be an example of a mini habit that you could try. So what you're going to do is, you'll see here that there's a rating scale of 0 to 3 and a prioritization 1 to 5. So the 5 areas, I'm going to come back up the page here, that we're going to talk about today in relationship to this activity are the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, as well as the professional. So you're going to rate yourself in each of these categories, 3 being the highest of where you are right now. If you had to rate your dedication to this particular area, is it a 0, like you're not really doing any? Are you doing a little bit? It's a 1. You're doing some, it's a 2. Or you're doing a lot, it's a 3. So in the rating column, you're going to give yourself a rating for the different domains. And then here in the prioritization column, what you're going to do is give yourself a ranking. So decide which one of the 5 areas you'd like to prioritize more than the other. So let's say you really want to work on your physical well-being or your physical self-love. So you would put that one as a 1. That's priority number 1. And let's say taking a break, like Diane said earlier, or listening to music, mental examples, let's say that's 2nd on your list. And let's say your spiritual domain might be your 3rd, so you put a 3 there. So this gives you an opportunity to kind of identify which areas you want to put your attention, because you can't do them all at the same time necessarily. That's overwhelming. And so by creating where you are right now and giving a prioritization to these 5 different domains, it gives you some latitude and something to focus on, because as I said, it's overwhelming to try to do all of them. So this is a tool that you can use. And then finally, once you have identified your prioritization and where you are on the rating scale, how are you going to celebrate when you are achieving these mini habits and you're making progress toward improving any of these particular areas and domains? So that's the first part of it. And then the second part of it is the promise. And the promise allows you to have an opportunity to be with yourself and decide and choose and elect how you're going to deal with particular things when they come up. So we did the activity where we spoke out loud all the stressors. We did a constructivist listening activity. So when you are feeling any of these particular emotions, when you're feeling sad, what's something that you can remember that will be helpful to kind of take you out of that sense of sadness? And it's perfectly fine, right, to be sad. When you're feeling anxious, what is something you can do? I might do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. I might call a friend. I might refer to my recalibration tool. When I feel lost or if I feel stressed, I will stop and remind myself, this is temporary. This too shall pass. I will strive my hardest to be gentle with myself, not beat myself up, to be easy with myself. And if I find myself making excuses, I will remember NJZ, the no judgment zone. And then I choose to treat myself always with love. So whatever your responses are to any of these questions. And so this is just a pact that you're making with and to yourself that involves no one other than yourself. And so with that, I will give you a little time to just be with yourself and think about it. And even if you don't feel like writing it out, it's okay. You can just think about what your responses are to these questions, because this is all about you right now. It has nothing to do with anyone else. So let's give a few minutes to do that. And then our time will just about be up.